Hey guys, what is going on? And welcome back to another episode of that Wolfie Royals podcast. We are in what are we now? We're in late July, and it's the first European podcast that we are doing, or the first European guest, should I say? Pretty cool one actually. Some of you may or may not know this guy or these guys. Um, Taken a little bit by storm, really. There's some crazy deals going on, some fantastic animals, and just generally really nice people. So if you're not already, head on over to like Instagram, Facebook, etc., and follow Prague Morphs. Prague Morphs. They've got some absolutely incredible animals, and they're going big. They're going hard. So it's going to be really really interesting to see what comes out of this, and it'd be good to catch up and get a bit of an insight and see how they're getting on. But before we get into that and we bring them into the studio, it's going to go through a few quick sponsor updates. So of course, SWR shipping, myself and Scott shipping internationally. So if you've got any animals in the EU or the States that you want to get into the UK and bolster your collection, drop us a message. But likewise, if you need to send some stuff out as well, if you've got buyers overseas, drop us a message and we can connect you with your buyers, whether that be in the USA, Europe, Canada, Asia, etc. Drop us a message and we'll see what we can do and how we can help you. And on the back of that, obviously, Scott Wilkinson Reptiles is one of the official sponsors for this season. Again, Scott's been around for, well, almost forever. One of the pioneers of the UK hobby. If you have not already, sort of go check Scott out. Breeds, the way he breeds is completely different to everyone else. Really, really knowledgeable guy as well. So I'm sure most of you are already following Scott. He's one of the names that you have to follow in the UK. See how to do things properly. But yeah, go and check Scott's out. Scott Wilkinson Reptiles on Instagram, Facebook, etc. And of course, go and check out Mr. Jay Mitchell of JBK Racks and Reptiles. Jay is again an official sponsor for this year, brand new this year. Jay makes some of the best racking in the UK. If you've got stainless steel racking from Jay already, you know just how good it is, and the quality of the workmanship, etc., is fantastic. But also the collection that he's building is absolutely phenomenal as well. He's invested heavily. He's got some of the best animals in the UK at the moment. So if you're not already, go and check out at JBK Racks on Instagram and Facebook. And if you are buying animals, make sure that you are, and racks actually, make sure that you're buying them from Jay and not the scam artists that are around at the moment that are pinching people's money. And of course, go and check out the website as well, jbkreptilesandracks.co.uk, and you can see everything that's going on. And on the back of that, we have the ARC, the Amphibian and Reptile Club. The Amphibian Reptile Club just put on a fantastic show in July. If you wasn't there, you missed out on another fantastic show. Some incredible species on display as well. It's always a really good, fun-filled, family environment. So if you are thinking about getting down to a show, they're normally always down in the Kent area, which is fantastic for me. It's nice and local. But yeah, if you do want to get into some stuff, and go to your first ARC show, head on over to the website, sign up, get your membership, and then the details will become apparent as the shows are getting organized. And you can come to one of the best sort of smaller pop-up shows in the UK, hands down. And official sponsor again for 2024 has been a sponsor now for quite a few years. Eve's Temptations Creations and Eve's Temptations Royal Pythons. Sean's a good friend of mine, some fantastic animals, some really interesting projects, but also her merchandise is the best in the business, whether that's snake bags, t-shirts, hoodies, everything is handmade, everything is printed by Sean, and it is top quality stuff, whether that be the photo slates, the coasters, etc. Everything is top quality. Nothing has been put out in a bad condition or subpar standard. It is really, really the best stuff you can buy. Everything is, top quality, and I really do recommend if you're, getting snake bags or hatchings, etc. Sean is the one you need to go to and see. And then, obviously, Wild Racks have been sponsors since the very first show. They backed me from the beginning. Incredibly grateful for their support. Wild Racks. So if you are looking for like melamine racks for whether it's in your house, your snake room, whatever. If you want something that doesn't look as industrial as the JVK stuff, go and check out Wild Racks. You can get any size rack, any size tub, etc. that you need. But they also do have a courier as well at the moment, and the Patreon. So if you do want to take advantage of some of the fantastic deals that they're running through the Patreon, go up and join. You won't be disappointed. And again, they have some fantastic animals, and they're really going to be doing some big things this year. So check out Wild Rex and check out Twisted Matrix Morphs, which is obviously Toby and Liam combining to bring their collections together. And check out the website there, wildrex.co.uk. And of course, we have still got World of Exotics Dan on the show as a sponsor. So World of Exotics, we're all go and check them out. If you're in the area, go and pick up your supplies, etc., from them. And obviously your live food, they've got a brand new stock list all the time. And if you are in the Wirral area, go and purchase your stuff from someone that's supporting the hobby as well. So that's Dan at worldofexotics.co.uk. And there is a discount code as well, which I'll put a link into, where I believe you get 10% off of anything in your basket online. So definitely worth doing. And last but not least, Andrea Lupadini Design. So Andrea was the graphic designer for the Wolfie Royals logo, the SWR shipping logo, the podcast logo. So if you do need any design work done, go and check out Andrea's work. It is, top quality stuff. It will work with you to get everything how you want it and where you need it to be. And it looks fantastic, whether it's printed on t-shirts, tablecloths, banners, etc. You can see a few bits of his work behind me. And there is also podcast exclusive bundles running as well through that. So you can get a decent sized discount, but loads of add-ons and stuff as well. So if you do want to redesign your logo and maybe have a rebrand, Andrea is the guy to go and see. Now, that is enough rambling on for me. It's about time that I get our guest in for this episode. So you're going to see Devon from Prague Morphs. I'm sure Tereza will be there as well with him at some point, or you may be able to hear it in the background. But without further ado, let's get into it and let's bring him in. So here we go.
Hey man, how's it going? Am I on now?
You are. I can hear you loud and clear. How are you?
Man, after such an intro, I'm more nervous for the recording than I am when it's live.
Can you hear the intro in the waiting room?
Yeah, I can hear everything. I think I've used the same app before with some of the other people.
Yeah, StreamYard is
if you can hear this guy, he'll stop soon.
Yeah, he's a cutie. It's fine. Yeah. We'll let him off. And now just put the camera back on him. That's fine.
Yeah, we can just have this there. Yeah, and there's my wife, Tereza. So. Yeah, man. So how's it going? We got quite a late start here. I hope you'll be fine for work in the morning.
I'm off tomorrow. It's fine.
You're off. Easy.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I'm the worst guy when it comes to days of the week.
I was working today, to be fair. So yeah, it wouldn't have been Friday night that I was doing it this late. I'm a bit of an early bird these days. I like getting
me too. Early. Especially when there's things in the incubator and things laying. I mean, the females usually seem to start laying at like 4 to 5, and they're usually done by like 9 a.m. for us over here. So the second I'm awake and I know that there's something that could be laying, it's hard for me to stay in bed.
Yeah. Well, especially with the stuff you're hatching out.
Yeah, it's more just I think about it more of like the health of the female before of like what's coming out. We just had our first egg-bound female. I think I told you about that. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just had our first egg-bound female. When was that? 2 days ago? 2 days ago. I'm one to panic pretty fast when it comes to medical stuff. I've gotten a lot better with it. That's also why we hired Scott, the vet in the States. Maybe we'll talk about him a bit later. But I saw this girl and a little bit of miscommunication with my worker, as you saw, because we speak Czech together and my Czech isn't so good. So she texted me in the middle of the night while I was sleeping, because we knew that she started laying around 10 or 11 p.m. And that like maybe 1:30 or 2, she texted me saying she's still not done. She still has eggs inside of her. So I saw this at 5 a.m. I went down there and there was one egg left, and it was maybe like this far from the cloaca. So I took the snake out. The snake was maybe a bit more stressed than I would see from a female that's laying, but hard to say, right? They're stressed either way. And I massaged the egg a little bit and it moved pretty easily. So I was like, okay, maybe she can lay it herself. But then towards the tail end of the massage, a little bit of her tract started coming out with blood. So I stopped right away, and we already had a snake going in for mouth surgery that we've been dealing with for the last 6 months now from our hypo-DG het clown. So I called the vet and she was able to go right in. And the vets gave her some numbing. First, I should have told them that we didn't care about the egg. That was from Scott, because they're still kind of new with surgeries and things. One of them has a lot of experience, and the other one has been there, I think, for a year. And she just graduated. So they actually saved the egg, and it worked out perfectly. They gave her a shot for pain and then something for the swelling. And once the swelling came down, she went inside with a lubricated probe and she was able to untwist, and then the egg just slid out. So we were able to do it without any invasive surgery or cutting the snake or anything. So hopefully the snake's still fine now.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's man, I love the medical stuff. Maybe not like the bad parts of it, but like learning and the anatomy and everything. They're such tanks, man. It's crazy what they can handle.
Yeah, they can go through a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, and sort of not really be too affected by it.
Yeah, I mean, we had a shipment seized quite a while ago that we ended up getting back, and it sat in a German police station during the middle of the winter for a few days. And when we got everything was frozen solid, completely dehydrated. One of them was on her deathbed, and I was terrible that everything was going to be like getting sick and everything, and nothing got sick. Everything recovered. Everything's still alive to this day, and it just blew me away. That was like one of my first big like stressful situations when we started.
Yeah, that would cause panic stations to kick in. No doubt.
Yeah. Especially when I wasn't even there and I couldn't leave Czech Republic. It was a disaster.
Oh, shit. Right. Okay, let's take it back to the start then. So
Sure.
Prague Morphs, how does it come about? What's the background with it? How does it all come to fruition?
So Tereza and I used to live in a small 1-bedroom apartment in Prague, and it was like right after all the COVID stuff, or maybe the COVID stuff was still going, because when we started dating, I was still kind of living in Airbnbs. I didn't have a place set, and I was waiting for a new place. So when we finally got this place, we wanted a pet, and my vision was to have a really nice, fancy ball python in a terrarium underneath my TV. So I bought a terrarium from, I think, MS Reptiles, the German guy, Broghammer.
Yeah.
And it didn't show up in time. So I ordered another one from someone in Czech Republic. And then they both ended up showing up on time. And I joked with the guy that I was buying snakes from. And he was like, oh, you might as well get 2 snakes now. And the first snake that I had purchased was supposed to be a spot-nosed butterfly head clown. So he was like, here's a leopard pastel 66 head clown. You can make butter Batmans. And I was like, what the hell is that? Butter Batmans. Found the morph calculator on Morph Market. And dude, that was just the start of the rabbit hole. So within, I think, maybe 3 months, we had already had maybe 40 or 50 animals, just, buying stuff on Morph Market. We finally met my friend Martin down here in South from Bohemia Balls, and he posted a list online of like leopard head clown, butter head clown female, stuff like that. And I think I reserved 5 or 6 animals, and then we went to his house and I came home with like 32 animals. I just bought everything he had, all the females, which I don't have a lot of them anymore, of course, but in my head, that's what I needed to do to start. And I didn't really have like a game plan. It was just kind of like, this is fun and we want to do it and we're going to learn as we go. And I always told Tereza that like, if tomorrow EU decided to make it illegal for us to sell ball pythons, we're going to have a really expensive hobby.
So what sort of year was that? When did this all sort of come about?
This was May of 2021. Yeah, I think. Yeah, May of 2021. So we're only doing this for 3 years and a few months. That was our first snake, was May of 2021. And I think that we had already, by January? By 6 months later, we had already got a bigger place and had to move because of snakes. And that's when I was like, oh, maybe I should get a quarantine, like maybe I shouldn't just be like shoving everything in the same room. So that's when that started, like literally 6 months into it. And then of course we met all the guys out here in Europe, and all those guys just held our hand and made sure that everything was fine.
Dragged you through.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it got to here, the fast version.
And that was still like, you were still working, or you were still, it was a hobby basically at the time then.
Yeah. So as I was telling you, I used to be a professional poker player. I think when the COVID stuff started, I was playing online a little bit, but I didn't make as much money online as I used to in live poker. So I was still grinding online a bit, but Tereza was teaching English. I had some other like small business ideas that didn't work out. And I had some cash sitting around from poker, and I kind of knew that we were going to start doing this maybe as a hobby or a business or whatever, but I didn't necessarily have to work then. I still had a decent amount of cash. And man, I didn't play poker again because we just kept going into snakes and the opportunities just kept coming for us, as we'll get into here, And it just got to the point where I was like, okay, if now that I'm going to be serious with this, I should put all my time into it, especially because the animals are involved. And why not, right? This is the time in my life where I have the time to put everything into it. And yeah, I also didn't want to be 42 years old by the time I was selling my first animals.
So you
That was,
dove sort of headfirst pretty quickly into it, like
yeah, it's
you went big.
as hard as I could. In the first year, I don't think that Tereza watched a video on TV that wasn't snake related.
Yeah.
So I signed up for Justin's Patreon, Miguel's Patreon, maybe Billy's a bit too.
Yeah.
I just all the big guys. I was like, let's hear what they have to say. Give them their $100 a month, whatever they're going to. The money was kind of irrelevant because it sped up that process of learning.
Yeah.
And coming back to that vet that I was talking about, the reason that we have Scott Stahl, this vet in Virginia, is because on Justin's Patreon, he had a video once where he was like, hey, we have a snake with an enlarged heart. I'm going to call Dr. Stahl. And I was like, who the hell is that? And it took me a long time to figure out what vet he was in. And I finally found him. And, he's like the coolest guy we've ever met. He's like a huge part of our team now. And, these are the things that I found through the Patreon. And I learned about feeding. I remember going on Miguel's Patreon and pausing on his videos and like reading the animals that were in his racks. And these were all things that I live across the pond, so I can't just go over to these guys' places as easily as some other guys can. So that's what I used to learn. And anybody that I bought from, especially that we invested heavily from, I would really try to pick their brain. Not everybody let me do it, but of course, when you spend a decent amount of money with some guys and they're good guys, they're going to give you a bunch of knowledge. So that helped speed us up a bunch. A lot of guys took us under our wing without us even realizing that it was happening until, we were part of some other circles. So man, super thankful for everybody around us.
So let's go into, getting into how you went into it and how big you've gone into it. So let's talk investment. Now you're quite open with numbers and things like that.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I'm sure you won't mind too much. So for anyone that's, not talked to you before and has not really heard you speak about it before, there's, you put in a serious amount of money to make it what it is today.
Yes, we definitely have.
So where did that idea come from? When did you decide, right, okay, this is the time that I'm going to pump everything into this and this is going to be the career path?
Well, there's been 4 or 5 different budgets that have happened of how much we thought that we were going to spend, because initially, like I was telling you earlier, I did inherit some money at some point, but there was a point when I was still investing and that money wasn't a thing. We didn't know that it existed yet. So I was making decisions of buying males and stuff that I thought I wouldn't upgrade. And then of course I ended up inheriting money later. So I ended up buying animals that made other animals irrelevant, Yeah. So there were 3 different times where I was like, okay, we're going to spend $250,000. That's going to be everything, including racks, etc. And then the Renee deal came on the table, and it was just too good of an opportunity to pass up, especially to get such a crazy quality collection, regardless of the price, just to be able to get an opportunity to get a collection that's already made progress and proven successful. So that obviously changed things as well. And then we ended up buying land to build a facility. And I guess when everything's said and done, including facility, it's going to be upwards of $2 million.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's serious money. That's
including land and building and everything. We still have a huge amount of money invested into animals. And like I said, I mean, maybe that first 6 digits that I spent on my own was a learning experience more than anything, because, not everything that you buy is going to completely make a smash. And it's not just about investments. It's not just about returns, right? So I kind of looked at it in the sense of, if we get almost everything, then we can kind of morph and mold what we want to work on from there. We don't have to get a lot of everything, but we can at least get a really good female or a 1.1 of these projects. And I invested in Hypo Puzzle Clown prior to even knowing that Puzzle Clown was maybe not the world's best mix. We invested a bunch into Candy Clown before I maybe realized that I didn't want to work on albino stuff. But because we had this big palette to start with, it made it much easier to figure out which direction to go. Now, should everybody do that? Probably not. It's not the best way to do it. When I help our customers or my friends when they're buying things, I definitely put them on a different approach than I did, because I'm psycho, man. When there's something that we want and there's a way that I can make a deal and be good with it, like I'm going to figure out a way to get it. So that's not necessarily always a good thing, you know? And, but because of how fast things were going, if I didn't use the inheritance money for an investment, it was going to be used on something else within the family. So that was just kind of how it went. And I kept thinking that it was going to be finished. Like we had a big order from Justin where we bought the Sunset Clown and stuff. I'm like, all right, this is our last investment, yada, yada, yada. And then we got that opportunity to buy the collection with the TSK DG Clown stuff and the DG Clown things. And it was just such an opportunity that we couldn't pass up. And, you know, when you get a chance to buy a collection, dollar for dollar, it's always going to be better value than you would if you just go and buy, you know, stuff on Morph Market. So because of that, that's why
I've lost you a little bit.
That's why it ended up getting so crazy. And like the land wasn't even anything that was on the table until our friend Martin was like, dude, we have this 7,200 meters plot that's right next to my parents. You can only build on half of it, and because of that it's cheaper, but it would be perfect. You know, it's down the street from his house. He has a building company full time. We would have no neighbors. There's a huge amount of space for animals and stuff if we ever want to do anything else. So we bit the bullet and bought it. We had to buy it in cash. It was one of the more painful moments in my life. And yeah, so there's nothing on there yet. We have a little bit of the foundation dug out. I got a small loan to start on some building, but like as far as liquid cash goes, I'm not just trying to dump everything in. I'm trying to at least pull something out of Prague Morphs to do it as well. Yeah. Because like you said, it's an unfathomable it's an unfathomable number when I try to think about like what's happened and what has gone through our hands to get here.
And are you seeing return on that investment already?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go. I'm going to stay some private on some things here, but I mean, we're doing way better than I ever thought we would. But I think a big percentage of it comes down to just having good relationships with people, because a lot of people have told us, hey man, we want the animal, but we maybe don't need the animal, but we really like you guys, so we'd like to support. And that's a huge positive thing to hear from someone, you know, especially when they're willing to give you their trust or support. A lot of the guys that helped us out in the beginning, that held our hands, were, you know, I'm giving them access to animals and stuff first. Obviously they're paying me for them, but I'm letting them have access to stuff that maybe they wouldn't have had access to before. So I'm trying to help build the whole community as opposed to just us being the guys who buy everybody out, you know?
Yeah. So how big was buying those two collections out that sort of really pushed you forward?
Well, obviously everybody knows that we have Renee's animals now, because at one point it was a bit more something that we didn't want to talk about so much. But that probably put us on the map, I guess you can say, because I mean, like, Renee's animals are very famous. We followed him forever. Gorgeous stuff. I always wanted stuff from him. I had bought a few animals from him prior to the collection. Like, we had bought a chocolate Enchi hypo clown male and a chocolate puzzle hypo male from him, and that was right before the collection started. And when he offered me everything, and like, he sent me the list of everything, and now you get to see things that maybe you didn't know he had, right? Because it's not just he posts everything. So
yeah,
I knew. I said yes to first he offered me just a puzzle hypo project before everything, and I said yes to that before I even knew that I had the money. I knew that I could get the money. I knew that there were people I could borrow it from if I had to, but I would never let that opportunity go to anybody else. It was too good for me, not just because of how much it costs, but because of what you get behind it. And to get that many quality animals that's so far progressed in a project, it's just, I mean, you better take advantage of it. You might not ever get that opportunity again. So we had a bunch of good stuff prior to Renee, of course, but now that we had that, it just like compounded on each other. And then this last collection that we got, it was only, how many animals was it? This one I keep the name out of.
42 or
40. I think it was 42 or 43 animals. So it wasn't that much, but again, it was only two projects. It was TSK DG Clown and then DG Clown stuff. And I was a bit weaker in DG because, of course, now we have all the hypo from Renee. Yeah. So that just kind of like compounded on it. And now we're strong in DG. We're strong in hypo. Now I have both Exanthics, but whatever. I wasn't a huge fan of Exanthic prior to this, and maybe I'm still not huge on it. It looks awesome, and I don't mean it from the visual perspective, but I didn't like it financially, that there were so many different lines. Yeah. Now it's good that we're finding out that Black Exanthic is compatible with TSK, etc. But initially I asked him, I said, do we have a TSK test? And I think we didn't when we were talking.
No, we didn't.
the deal. So I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all of his, like, say DG double head Xanthic clown, and I'm gonna take my DG clown stuff to it, and then I will either test it or separate the 50% stuff, and then we will split the project. So the stuff that's not head Xanthic will go down DG clown, and the stuff that's head Xanthic will go down the triple. But since there wasn't the test to it, it was like, okay, that's going to be a bit more complicated. So I just decided to go down that path, and obviously Justin's killing it with the VPI stuff. So let's see what happens. It's not very often that you get a chance to hit some triple visual stuff, and we have a lot of animals for it. So I just kind of let it run. I also know that a lot of the Japanese guys work on TSK and things, so I just said maybe we'll even have both lines, and it won't be the end of the world. But now, of course, it requires more space. That's the hard part.
Are you working VPI as well then?
Yeah, but we only have we have like a VPI clown. I had 2. I sold one to my friend. So yeah, a little bit. I think the only one, my love. We just have one. We have one. And then I sold we had some like VPI pied stuff, and then I sold that whole project. So yeah, I guess I have one VPI clown left. But I guess I'll probably do something similar with it. Initially, before people had made the DG Xanthic stuff, the DG Xanthic clown, I wanted to just explore a bunch of like darker combos in Xanthic, like stranger Xanthic clowns, blackhead Xanthic clowns. So maybe I'll still do that with the VPI. I think this season will be the first season she'll breed.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. It's like I say, it's always tricky having 2 lines there because that's 2 lots of animals you got to.
Yeah.
If they were compatible, absolutely fine. Fantastic.
Yeah, but and what's funny too is that there's like different prices. You'll have people out there that'll be like, oh, VPI superior, and then some people say TSK superior. Yeah. For me, they both are great lines. There's just better examples and worse examples on both, right? Sometimes someone will post a TSK that's phenomenal, and sometimes it's brown, and the same with the VPI.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I will I'm late into TSK, but I'd always made the decision that JD Constrictors was working TSK, and that was where the Stormtrooper came from. So if I was going to get into Space Xanthic, TSK was going to be the way I was going to go.
And you have some of it now?
Very, very few, but yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
we have 1.1 TSK DGs that didn't breed. This last collection that we bought, we only had 2 clutches, maybe 3 clutches from it. We had the chance to triple, but the female stayed at 15 millimeters the whole time that we moved, and she was slamming food. And then there was even a week where she was wrapping the bowl and stopped feeding. And then I ultrasounded her, and she was still at 15 millimeters. And then eventually she just went backwards, man. So
yeah,
that's what the move does, man.
Coming into it, obviously you've put in a big hefty investment and stuff. Was there any people that were trying to sort of shut doors to stop you progressing, and was there any difficulties that you faced?
Dude, honestly, like when we first started, there were a lot of people that were like, you need to be careful. There's a lot of bad people in the reptile industry, which I'm sure there are. We haven't dealt with much of it. Almost everybody who's been around us has been very positive. And I think, we try to be positive as well. So maybe that's just kind of like why it is. I think that we've legitimately never really had any big drama, right? No, don't think so. Nothing. I mean, maybe not someone. That we know of. Yeah, not that we know of, right? Maybe there's people out there that hate us.
You should hear what they say about you online. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, maybe after this podcast, I'll have more to say. But yeah, like, dude, really, that's why I was telling you that I see it in the States, that the guys are at each other's throats a bit more. And like, how many big guys that are doing it seriously in the EU are there? There's like, what, 15 or less of us, right?
Maybe, yeah.
And if you want to talk about guys that are doing it even full time, then there's like less than 5. I mean, dude, between all those 15 guys, what are we? We've met all of them, and we're cool with all of them. Maybe we don't go to go spend the night at their house or whatever. But if I need to message anybody in Europe, we've had a positive interaction with them. There's been a few times where like maybe someone sold us an animal that didn't have it or whatever, but it was never really from anyone that significant that there would be a problem from. So yeah. I don't think that anyone really stopped us from trying to progress. If anything, they just helped us, man.
Yeah, I sort of see it in Europe as well. Like a lot of the bigger breeders are all friends anyway. It's a lot more like of a closer knit tight group than some of the other sort of communities.
I think, like, for example, when you look in the European market, if you want to look within the countries, you will find more drama. So like if you look in France, maybe more of the French guys don't like each other. But if you look at the market as a whole of like all the guys that are from different countries, that has less. I think that makes it easier to kind of get along and everything because everyone's from such a different background, etc. I mean, I'm American, obviously, right? So I'm the only. There's one other American out here with us, Severin from the Collectors. And have you
Yes.
ever met
Yeah.
him?
Yeah. Yeah. Severin Hardy.
So there is another American out here, but we're very rare in this scene. So it's kind of cool to have this like little melting pot of all these people. Like when we go to the Houghton and Ham show and we go to dinner, there'll be like the guys from the Netherlands, the German guys, the French guys, some Belgian guys, and us, and even the UK guys show up too right now. So I think it's awesome, and I hope it continues to stay that way. I mean, when we started and we got really close with Peter Morick and Chris Wampy Balls, they were like, "Man, we're so excited for the future. Everything's getting friendly again. We've like made these groups of friends." So yeah, it's been pretty positive for us, and I continue to do it that way. I think that if someone wants to have drama, I mean, I'm pretty good at keeping it at least neutral. Like there's no need to hate each other. We all kind of have similar goals. I'm sure that changes as you pass someone or the opposite or whatever when people are competing. But I mean, it's a race that goes inch by inch, and we're all in it together. So
Yeah, absolutely. Like your success will only breed success for other people that are working certain projects or working similar projects. You can't sell everything and hatch everything all of the time.
of course, and sometimes the guys that buy animals from you they're going to pass you, right? You're going to have a bad season or whatever, and it's very important that those guys have success. You can't just be this like greedy guy who's just like, oh, you're going to sell all the animals and then none of your customers ever have any success, whether it's financially or breeding. I mean, they're never going to come back, right? So it's important that people at least understand the right way to do it, even if they don't take that path, but at least that it's being shown to them, because I think that if I would have started 5 years earlier, it would be much harder to learn. And there would be, it would just be a different space than it is now.
Do you think the timing of you coming in and investing that money and buying those collections was heavily helped by sort of COVID kicking off and prices dropping, after COVID? Because during COVID, it was pretty strong. The market was flying, really.
Man, when we bought it, I think that prices hadn't really. Okay, the second collection, sure, the DG Clown and TSK stuff, yeah. I mean, dude, we got a great deal, but the market was still a bit higher than it was when it started. So obviously if that was made today, it would be cheaper. But when you get this whole collection, I mean, you see this a lot in the snake world where people will complain that they didn't make their returns. I mean, I come from a finance background with my father, and for you to be able to make your money back on something in like 2 to 5 years is unheard of in other industries, So even if I paid twice the price that I did for these animals, I mean, as long as you don't kill off and light your snake room on fire, you're probably going to do okay, because you're going to be able to breed these animals for multiple seasons. And assuming that you're breeding correctly and you're making progress, I mean, the animals that you hold back is putting value in your pocket too. So we've held back things that I never thought in a million years we would have because of those deals. So yeah, I guess that's kind of I got a bit sidetracked on that one. But.
No, it makes perfect sense because, like you say, the animals that you're putting away are future profit essentially.
Yeah,
those holdbacks are all going to be financially viable for you in 2-3 years time, and you can breed it again and again and again. Now we maybe see less of that as sort of the genes and the combos evolve quicker. You don't see people holding animals for 5-6 years to breed them. It might be 2 or 3 seasons and then it's onto something else.
And a really big one that opened my eyes is that Ozzy has a bunch of videos of him talking. I think they're called the Millionaire Snake Breeder series. They're a few years old. I don't know if he still does them, so apologies if he does. And he had one where he was talking about hurricane clowns. That a bunch of people were really upset that on year one, I don't know what year this was, guys, I'm sorry, but on year one, hurricane clowns were like 10 grand. And then the next year they were $5,000. So Ozzy gave someone this example where he's like, all right, everyone's complaining that the market's dropping and how can we make money? He's like, so let's just assume that I take a hurricane clown and I only breed it to regular clowns. So we're not even making progress. I forget the exact number he used, but let's use like 10 as an example. So he's like, okay. So he's like, so say from 10, my usual number would be that 8 of those females go, or 9. Let's assume it's 6 for the example, okay? So now we have 6 females that have gone. My average eggs are 7 per season. Let's give them 5 eggs just for the example of this. So now we have 30 eggs, okay? 50% of them should be hurricane clowns. Let's pretend we get crushed by the odds and we made 6 hurricane clowns, right? Instead of the 15. So we're 25% less or 50% less than we should have. Okay, now you have these hurricane clowns for $5,000. You just put $30,000 in your pocket, right?
Yeah.
And the market went down 50% and you haven't even made any progress yet. And like this was a really big thing for me where I was like, okay, obviously if you invest correctly and do it, I mean, not everything's going to pay off, but if you do what you love and you keep forward, it won't matter in the end. But that was a big thing that showed me, okay, I think that I got this figured out a little bit, and that was a great example of someone who wasn't even trying to make progress. Now, obviously, that's unsustainable. Like if everybody only bred stranger clowns, which you kind of saw for a while, you only saw the pastels and the lessers and stuff floating around, then of course they all drop, right? But even if a project drops 90% in value over years, and you have multiple animals in it, and you bought one female and you held 3 females, and next thing you know, you have this one rack full of the project. It doesn't matter. It's creating you cash flow, assuming that you're not spending $40,000 a month on some rent for these snakes in a mansion or something. I mean, it's going to pay off. So I don't want to be too financial here. There is some love here behind it, but it's good to talk about it sometimes from the business perspective, because I think that a lot of people don't get to hear about it unless, on Justin's and stuff, they have great stuff on his Breeder University, I think they call it, on Patreon.
Yeah, the Canova University stuff. Yeah,
Canova University. Yeah, that's what it's called.
It's a huge part of it, because without any liquid returns, without any cash coming back in, the whole hobby is unsustainable. People aren't buying new animals, people aren't buying new racks, people aren't investing in new stuff, and I think that's where people get lost sometimes when they say they've bought an animal for say 10 grand and it's only worth $5,000 a season they breed it. It's like, but you're getting 5 of them. That's 25 grand back in your pocket.
It's totally irrelevant, because unless there's like one sunset clown out there and you bought it and nobody produced it in the next year, it's always going to be cheaper. But even if it's cheaper, you're still a year. I mean, you can be like, oh, I could have waited next year to buy it. Okay, well then you would have bred it 1 year later and it would be lower again, right? Yeah. And I had a few friends at some point who could definitely afford to invest in things, and they were always really scared to spend that 5 digits on an animal because of this. And I think that after them watching me light some money on fire and see things that worked out and things that didn't, I think that they got a bit more comfortable in that as well. So a lot of our friends around us also started investing pretty heavily, and I would like to say that I helped influence that a little bit, and not just through us, through other people as well too.
Right, before we move on to something else, then 3 bits of advice. So someone's coming in with a chunk of money, 3 bits of advice as to how they should invest it properly to get the most bang for their buck.
Okay, for one is to take their time. Okay, that's the number one thing, because I was in a very unique situation where the money wasn't just going to sit in my bank account until I wanted to spend it. So if you're not in that situation, or you're not in this pressure cooker of I have to invest, otherwise it's gone, take your time. The number 2 thing that I always give this example to the people that are investing really high amounts of money. If you're chasing these really crazy projects, quad recessives, 5 quintuple recessives, whatever it's called, you want to have what genes that you want in it, okay? I don't want to be a huge pastel hater, but let's use pastel as an example. If your goal is to make that sunset hypo DG clown, and you have a quad head to quad head pairing, and you fucking hit the ballpark out and you hit 3 of them, but 2 of them have pastel, if you had 10 buyers before, now you have 8. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily always the case, but you want to make sure that if that gene is there, you want it to be there. And like when we started, I wanted to buy DG clown stuff in Europe, and the only DG clown stuff I could find was like pastel clown head DG, pinstripe clown head DG, and there was nothing else. So I felt like I had to buy it. But that's not the case anymore. You can almost always find the animal that you want, unless it's like, I don't know, a puzzle, hypo DG puzzle, right, that nobody's made or whatever. If you're looking for something, make sure that it has what you want in it, so that you're not wasting half of the animals that are coming out, right? Like if you don't want lesser in that animal, don't buy it. Simple as that. Wait until you figured out exactly what you want. What's the next one that I can think of? Invest in the correct equipment, because if you don't invest in the correct equipment, it's going to cost you double, because at one point you will have to invest in the right equipment. We have some incubators that don't work very well, and they were expensive, and I always have to keep the door open, etc. Well, guess what? There's going to be a period where I'm going to have to buy more incubators, and I just didn't think very much. I was in this kind of pressure cooker of trying to rush. So yeah, buy the right equipment. And the last one that I guess I would say is you can't always choose this, but try to buy from the right people. And when I mean the right people, if there's 3 guys that have that same $10,000 animal, not all those guys are willing to help you. Now, I don't mean that you're going to be blowing them up and asking them 40 questions a day, but you want them to know that you're a part of their project, especially if you're investing into something crazy. You don't want it to be like, oh, here's your animal and you never hear from the guy again. Sometimes that's how it is because there's nowhere else to buy that animal, and we have a lot of animals that came from that. But the value of guys helping us out, like having someone like Roland from Iris. If you invest any amount of money with Roland, man, he will never leave you in the dark. He's such a good guy. He will always make sure that you're taken care of. I've even heard of times where some of the original strangers that he sold, maybe someone's died, and maybe who knows whose fault it was, and he replaced it anyways. So pick the right people, especially when it comes to the big amounts of money. Not everybody's going to be amazing, but of course there are good people out there.
Yeah, I think that's sound advice because obviously, again, those people that are sort of in it for the long haul as well, that have been around for ages and are going to give you the advice, they're constantly going to evolve as well.
Yeah, and man, what we think now is not what we think tomorrow.
Yeah, those people aren't going to be standing still. So, yeah, you're always going to be evolving that project, whether it's down the same path as they go, or whether it's a different route and you end up sort of switching or trading animals down the line or something. But yeah, I think that's really key. Like, this building relationships with people is massive. I think people don't really take that into consideration.
I think, when we first started, the end of COVID, when the market was a gold mine, you could make animals that people need and you post them online and they would sell themselves. Yeah. And that period, it still exists to an extent when you have the right animals, but now the amount of effort that takes to make a sale now is a bit different than it used to be. And I think that sometimes the older generation struggles with it because people now want a relationship, especially the newer guys that are coming in. I hear it all the time. Maybe I have a bit more patience with people just because I don't have a job and I'm still doing this in the beginning, but I kind of will talk to anybody as long as I have the time. And I know that there will come a time when I can't do that. And a lot of people do tell me, like, man, it's so nice you talk to me and not a lot of these other guys talk to me, etc. So I think that it's very important to have relationships, not just with friends, but also with your customers as well too, because these are the guys that are paying your bills, right? And these are the guys that are keeping you afloat. So you need to help keep them afloat as well. Not every person's going to be the great relationship. People try to take advantage of it, etc. But we try to do our best to help people as much as possible. Of course, it gets out of hand when you get hundreds of ID questions a day from people that are not even having animals from you, etc. So yeah.
I think those, making relationships with customers as well. People seem to think that, like, let's say you hatched 30 animals in one season. You don't have to find 30 buyers.
No.
You've only got to find 5 people.
Yeah. Sometimes not even that, man. Sometimes you get someone who's just like, they're like us. They want that big step forward. They have the money to invest, but they haven't found the right person, and they just clean you out.
Yeah. And that all stems from, good customer care, good relationships with, people that you're buying from, but also people that you're selling to. And it is a big pyramid. That's the way it is. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do to change it.
Coming back to that piece of advice, I think I'll add a fourth piece to it. Be a good customer. Being a good customer is a huge part of it as well. If you're a good customer and you can prove that you're trustworthy, whether it's with payments or payment plans, if you have a 30-day payment plan, finish it in 20, right?
Yeah.
Under promise, over perform. And I think that is another reason that we were able to get so many crazy opportunities, because that was another reason the budget gets so crazy. You'd be like, all right, I'm going to spend $10,000. Then you spend 10 grand. The guy's like, well, I got this GHI hypo clown sitting around for an extra $2,000. And you're like, well, here we go. Right.
What's 12 if I've already spent 10? What's the problem?
Yeah. Right. And they always give you some crazy deal on top. So be a good customer. And when you're a good customer, you're going to get animals offered before the other guys who are not good customers. So it's important when you want to move forward, right?
100%. Absolutely. So on to something else now. Obviously, we've had a little tour around Prague Morphs on the phone earlier. And one thing I noticed is that you're saving a hell of a lot of sheds for shed testing.
Yeah.
What's your view on yeah, what's your stance on it all? How do you think it affects the market? Does it strengthen it, weaken it, etc.?
Well, let's be a bit transparent here. I think that the shed testing is great, but I think that it does divide things a bit because somebody who has a lot of financial power and a lot of animals makes more progress than someone who doesn't. So someone who's a small hobby guy who's trying to keep his expenses low can't necessarily afford to test every single hatchling every of all of his clutches, right? Now, maybe he doesn't need to test them all because of his pairings, but somebody who has a deeper pocket could now take a quad het male and throw it to every animal in their collection and theoretically test hundreds of babies. And next thing you know, they have all these the crazy quad het codom combo females, right? And or even with visuals, right? Because if you had all these crazy triple het to triple het pairings, you're going to make a lot of double visual 66% and a lot of single visual 66%. So the shed testing just speeds these things up so much. Now, that being said, I think it's hugely great that now we're figuring out, man, I was positive that Wookiee and chocolate would be the same thing, and now I'm proven wrong, right? Or at least I thought it was a different line of chocolate. So it's really nice to get these answers as opposed, like scientifically, as opposed to us guessing, regardless if we're making an educated guess based on 10 seasons of breeding or whatever. So because we've already had 5 or 6 expensive animals that we bought that haven't proved out. Some people made it up, some people didn't. And these things will be far few and in between because of shed testing, assuming that our shed testing is actually working. But yeah, so that's kind of how I view it. We're only separating things that need to be tested. So like, we had that stranger clown clutch. There's nothing to test in it. I'll let them shed out together. I think that if I had the pocketbook, I would test my animals for every gene that exists, because then you would have no more surprises, right? Now, is that smart? I'm not so sure, but it would be at least something that you could experiment with, right? Maybe you test 100 hatchlings, and next thing you know, you have 6 hatchlings that are het ultramel and some yellow belly floating around, and now you don't make an ivory that you would have made 2 years later. So is that worth the money to be spent? It's a lot to sit down and think about.
How do you think it speeds up projects for the smaller guys that are making those, visual clowns 66% het?
Well, now they can hold less. Now they can hold less animals, right?
Yeah.
So less holding animals is better for progress, especially when those animals are like, man, this season, instead of using a clown head ultramel, we used an ultramel clown, and just that one little difference made such a huge difference in the clutches that come out, because you don't make double hets, right? Yeah. So these are the huge parts for these people, and I think that it even allows people to buy cheaper males too and make more progress, but they have to still take advantage of it. They can't just only test something, because for every animal that they're not testing, that they're holding back, could be costing them X amount of dollars. So this is when the finance nerds get to come out and start making equity calculations and figuring out which clutch is worth testing or not. These are things that I'm really good in going into, but I haven't sat down and tried thinking about it, because I think that if you make a spreadsheet, and if we're only talking about numbers, there will be things that are worth testing and things that are not, because we have some 66% het candy stuff, and the price difference of it being 100% is not that big. Right? But if it's sunset stuff, you definitely want to test it.
Yeah. There's going to be projects like you say, like the candy, the albino, and stuff. The price is almost rock bottom now, anyway, regardless whether it's 100% het visual or 66% het. There's not a huge amount of difference in it that's going to make financial sense for you to test 5 or 6 hatchlings at €50, €60 each, and put that money back into it.
Yeah, it also makes it really nice when you have some clutch that's weird, and then you can just go back and test the dad as well, right? And start getting a bit more info that way, or the mom, however.
Yeah, it knocks on for generations as well. Like, I just had a friend who bought a red stripe yellow belly clown probably 2 years ago, or maybe a year ago, as a male, and it was 66% het DG, 50% het G stripe. So now that's come back as 100% het DG, but no G stripe. Right, yeah. But now everything that he breeds that to, he can test, because he can now take that different route. He can put it into some other animals, test out those hatchlings and things. And it not only speeds up the process for the pairing that he was doing, but the future pairings, and it increases his value on those next pairings as well.
Yeah, man, I blanked it. I had something cool to say. I'll let you continue.
Go ahead.
No, it has to come back to me. But,
right, project.
No, sometimes I'm holding on to my thought, and then I think about what you're saying, and I lost it. So
Right, projects. Let's talk projects because you've got some crazy bits going on.
Sure.
So, what projects excite you the most at the moment within either your collection or sort of what you're seeing online?
I really like Hypo DG Clown. I think that that's going to be a big one of very, there's a lot of variables of it. I think that it'll look great with dark stuff. It looks great with light stuff. Just even some of those first Hypo DG Clowns that we saw in the market the last 2 years, some of them are phenomenal. The one that the Las Vegas ball pythons guy has, he has a male. I think it's originally from Fireball, but it's phenomenal, So that really excites me. We love Hypo stuff. I really, as much as I like Hypo DG Clown, I also enjoy DG Clown and Hypo Clown separately. So I think that sadly for my rack space, I will have to work all three, but those really excite me. Obviously, since we have a lot of the Renee stuff, Hypo is probably my favorite gene. Clown is close. But yeah, Hypo seems to be quite phenomenal in the right combos. So Puzzle Hypo is also a really cool one. We're making a lot of cool Puzzle Hypo stuff. Tereza really likes Puzzle Hypo. Tereza really likes that chocolate spot nose Puzzle Hypo girl. We have 6 chances. We have 6 chances at making it again, and 6 chances at making the super chocolate in like 5 days or something. Man, we have a clutch coming from pastel gravel Wookie clown head hypo to gravel Wookie double head hypo clown. That's probably the one that I'm most excited for this season, just because there's like 256 different combinations of snakes that can come out of that pairing. But man, I love the puzzle stuff, but I still get really excited. I got super excited to hatch that super chocolate hypo clown. Also, when we proved out this 50% head DG, I almost dropped the egg, man, for that pastel confusion. The pastel confusion DG clown, I almost dropped the egg. I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, that is a stunning animal. Obviously, I saw it earlier, and it's luminous. It is crazy. It's really bright, and I think that's one of the genes that pastel works really well still with confusion.
It does, but it's too strong for me, because now I can't do anything except for make a bright combo with it. And if anything else gets mixed in it, I think it just stays too yellow for me. Justin has a DG Clown video he put out a few months ago where they made a lot of dark stuff, a lot of like BP Blackhead DG Clowns, I think. Don't quote me, but the dark stuff, the DG looks phenomenal because it just cleans it up and keeps that contrast. So I'm still a bit of a pastel hater. I do have it in some pairings where I can't, like that pastel gravel Wookie clown at hypo. I don't got it without pastel, so you got to run it with pastel, right? So those are the things I'm really excited for. I love clown stuff, man. Like just even hatching these stranger clowns, regular stranger clown 50% het moray downstairs, unbelievable. I mean, we have stranger clowns, but we don't have a stranger clown. It was always with something else.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I'm not a huge pied guy, but I will say that I can't talk. Sorry, a night at Peter Morick's house with him having some drinks convinced me to get hypopied, and now we have like 25 hypopied animals or something downstairs. So I think that if I was to go down the pied route, I like hypopied and I like DG pied more than I like hypo DG pied. I haven't seen so much of the hypo DG pied stuff that I like because it fights itself too much and there's not so much pattern. So that's kind of where I'm at. But I love the double recessive clown. I'm not a huge G-stripe clown guy, but it seems that clown works well with freaking everything, man, except for puzzle.
Yeah, I think that was one of the big disappointments, wasn't it? But
we haven't even bred those animals yet. It was an expensive trio of animals, but maybe something cool comes out of it. Because the puzzle clown's not phenomenal, but has anyone made a stranger puzzle clown to see what the difference would be, or something with a ton of pattern? Maybe there's some combos that are absolutely cool. Will from Royal Canadian a few months ago sent me some stuff that he thought could be puzzle clowns, and they looked really cool too. So not going to spoil anything for anybody, but
yeah, I think there's going to be a few surprises with that project. I mean, obviously Leopard was in that puzzle clown that we saw online recently.
That one that everyone's like sharing, right?
Yeah, I mean, Leopard dominates clowns in most things. So yeah, I think if you're going to put it into puzzle, it's going to dominate that as well, because it's it's a stripy gene. It can throw some really reduced pattern animals.
Yeah, leopard kind of almost makes puzzle look a bit tri-stripy.
Yeah.
It like really gives it this like multi-dorsal striping that goes down it.
So what projects have you bought, or what animals have you seen or purchased in that you've had big hopes for and they've not really been that impressive?
Well, Candy Clown really let us down. There was a bit of miscommunication with my friend, and I bought first we have a blade leopard Candy Clown somewhere downstairs. There was an awesome animal as it was younger, and now that it ages, it just kind of gets this like weird yellowish purple hue. And from the same guy, I bought what I thought was just a double head Candy Clown, and she ended up proving out pastel, and the male was a super pastel spot nose yellow belly clown head candy.
So you got hammered with a pastel
So
everywhere.
we made 2 double visuals, and they're both super pastels. I showed you one of them downstairs. You can't see much of it.
Yeah.
So I also wasn't thinking so much on the multi-recessive path at the point. Like I knew I wanted multi-recessive projects, but I didn't really think of what that 3rd and 4th recessive would be with candy, because if you don't make Candy Clown Pied, what else is there? Hypo's not going to do much. DG's probably not going to do much. So there's not like maybe Sunset, something like that. So I wasn't thinking about that so much. Another one that really let me down is Lav Albino. I love Lav Albino. They look really good. But again, if I'm not going to go down the Lav Clown Pied, other than Sunset, there's nothing else in my mind that I can do of that multi-recessive. So now that we have Rainbow, which came from Renee, that's another reason that maybe we don't want to go so much further into Lav Albino and Candy. So that's what we're going to focus on, especially because Rainbow Hypo works way better than, say, Lav Hypo and Candy Hypo.
I think that will look fantastic with puzzle in it as well.
The Rainbow Hypo puzzle?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have Peter Morick just hatched bunch of chocolate Mojave Hypo double het stuff, and we're getting 1.2 from him. And back to having the good relationships with people, it's when you got these friends that are working the same projects, we're able to go back and forth and offer each other things. So we had no rainbow clutches this season because the male, we never got Renee's original male. Somebody else got it prior to him and our deal. So I got a bunch of rainbow stuff, but everything that we hatched wasn't ready to breed. So no rainbow clutches this season. So thankfully, he saved our ass.
You had quite a few rainbow animals still though last year, didn't you?
Yeah.
From the stock.
5 clutches. But the problem is that it was from that Cine Enchi Rainbow Hypo, and then all of the females were either Enchi or Cine. So we could only make the same combos, either the Super Enchi Rainbow Hypos, or Cine Enchi Rainbow Hypos, which we made 4 of them, 3 of them. One of them died, which was my fault. We'll get into later. Well, it's a combination of faults, but one of them died, and we had 3 phenomenal males. We had 3 males, 2 of them being phenomenal, one of them being a bit darker. So I let one of the guys, one of our first really big customers, I guess he wants to shout out the Trophy Exotics in Texas. He bought a bunch of stuff from us. So I let him choose. You can choose them because we have 2 phenomenal ones. He took, of course, one of the best ones, and then the other one that was really nice is the one that died. So I kept my word. He still has that really good one. We have a bit of the darker one, but even if he was to breed, I didn't want to make all the same pairings and just keep making more and more and more, right? You're not making any progress that way. So we do have Rainbow Hypo Het clowns. We had 5 males, I think. Jurgen from Pro Herper has one. Bohemia Balls, Martin has one, and everybody's is breeding except for ours. So
that's always the way.
Yeah, but it's okay.
Always the way.
I think that Jurgen has the chance of making the triple, and man, I hope he does, dude. We want to see what it looks like. I'm not going to be jealous. I might be throwing some money at him if he does. So.
I think I produced my first double at DG Clowns in 2020.
Wow.
And there wasn't really anyone else doing them then. And I sold some females. I let some females go to people. So I think it was pastel and lesser in quite a few. So I let them go. And I think everyone who has bought a double het female off me since then has produced DG Clowns.
And they banged them out, right?
Yeah. And they produced absolute bangers from double het to double het, or poss hets and things like that. And everyone else produced one apart from me still.
Dude, I think when I started, and don't quote me, I think, what is his name? The High Desert Pythons, that guy who's really on Instagram. Man, I think that he has some story where he had some dreamsicle project, man, where he had 3 years. He just didn't smash any dreamsicles from like a tied head dream to some double head or something. Don't quote me. But then he sold it to someone, and that same season, the person hatched like 4 of them.
Oh, man, it just kills. It just
Man.
kills because every time I'm just seeing people going, like, "Is this a DG clown?" And I'm like, "Yeah, shut up." Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Like, hey
care.
man, they're like, hey, do you think this one's DG? Yeah, it's definitely DG. What about that one? Yeah, that too, man.
That's exactly it. So something that you touched on there then was like obviously like trials and tribulations, your animals dying and stuff. What sort of setbacks and things have you come across in your sort of like the 3-4 years that
So
you've
I
been
guess since I just like spilled the beans on me killing this animal, I guess I'll tell the story. So we used to buy from a cheaper rat vendor, which probably was also another piece of advice that we can go back to. Buy good quality food, especially if you don't want to lose animals. So we bought from a cheaper vendor, which we found out later the guy was spraying his animals with some pesticide or something, whatever it was. And we had one feeding where we had like 4 or 5 regurgs, and I'd only had one regurg ever since we started. We had like 4 or 5 regurges, and they weren't all in the same time. They were like within the course of like a week, and nothing was digested. And I went into the hatchling room, and the Cinienchi rainbow hypo was bloated like a water balloon, and his stomach was super squishy.
Oh,
You
no.
could like jiggle it and like see him shake. So first I thought he was stopped up. So I tried pushing what I thought was like a stuck urine out. He wasn't stopped up. So I put him in warm water, which ended up being what killed him. So what ended up happening was I put him in warm water to try to get him to pass it, and he ended up throwing up everything. And he threw up a bunch of like undigested rat bile. It was just liquid rat. And he ended up he ended up aspirating into his trachea and choking and dying the next day. So
Oh, shit.
I actually have a video of him choking. It's pretty sad because after he threw up, I thought that it was fine. And he was actually supposed to go to the vet the next day to start on antibiotics right away, just in case there was any problem. So the next day I was working on him, and I opened the tub and I could see him open mouth breathing. And of course, that's like the scariest thing that can happen in snakes for you, especially with like all the viruses and stuff going around, right? So I immediately took out my phone. We film everything to send him to Scott, the vet in Virginia. And first he did this little, he like kind of was here, and he opens his mouth a little, and then he takes his head and he goes back and opens, and he goes, and you can see like water drops flying out of his trachea, but he has no mucus or anything in his mouth, absolutely none. So when I sent the video to Scott, Scott said, "Oh, that doesn't look good. He's aspirated into his lung, and he probably is in the process of developing pneumonia and or dying." So again, we have to get him into the vet tomorrow. This was before we had antibiotics on hand, which now we have everything on hand, thankfully. So the next morning I went, and he was dead. So we went and did the necropsy, which is very important. If anybody ever wants to talk snake stuff, you always want to get a necropsy to finalize the cause of death so that you know what you're dealing with. So it's nothing serious. And we went to the necropsy. Lungs are clean, mouth is fine, nothing scary virus-wise. But when they he was like rolled up in a ball from when he was dead, and when they like unwound him, he opened his mouth, and a bunch of matter came out of his trachea, like dead rat parts and everything. And when they cut him open, like I said, the lungs were fine, but from the neck almost all the way down to where the trachea ended was completely filled with everything that he threw up. So I actually had this problem again with a retic, where one of our employees accidentally overfed one of our retics, like 7 rats, some crazy number.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. It was like so bloated, and all we did was wait, and the snake passed it. And if I would have done that with that rainbow hypo, there's still a chance he would have died. But I think that but because of the necropsy and everything being fine, and the only thing that killed him being what was in his trachea, I was the cause of death. It took me a long time to figure that out. I actually didn't think of that until I dealt with that retic problem like a year later, and then it really hit me that I killed the snake. Yeah, and that just comes from inexperience, you know.
But I think that you sharing that story is obviously quite a big deal, because a lot of people would have, a lot of people, if they've experienced issues and stuff in the past, have kept quiet, pretended anything never happened before or whatever. But your experience is going to help loads of other people down the line as to what's going on.
Well, So I'll talk a bit about the vet that we work with. So his name is Dr. Scott Stahl. He's out of a clinic called seavs.com, I think. He helps Justin with animals. He helps Miguel with animals. He's been around for a long time. Scott is the savior for us with these things. So without him, we wouldn't be able to do any of this. And if somebody tells you they've never had a problem, it's probably a red flag, because when you have 500 animals, it doesn't mean that every animal's keeling over and dying from a virus like Nido. But when you say you've never had any issues, I mean, Scott even told me that in big collection management, which is something that he specializes in, that anywhere between like 1% and 3% of problems, and I don't mean sick animals, but like something with stuck, things that are shedding incorrectly, or something with digestion issues, or an animal that pushes too much, right? So if you're within this like 1% to 3% number, that's usually pretty normal for people to have small problems. Now, thankfully, us of Prague Morphs have kept that number well under 1%. We're super paranoid about everything, and hiring him was a big part of it. But man, you have to talk about these problems, I think that a lot of the virus stuff is pretty taboo as well, and people are scared to talk about it. And as much as it is scary and it's a risk, I think that it's a manageable risk, and that the whole hobby can overcome things like this and not have to shun our neighbor when the guy finds out that he had Nido in his collection, because it's not a death sentence for anybody. I mean, maybe that animal that has symptoms is probably going to go down, but the biosecurity in the scene is 10 times better than it was 10 years ago. People are using disinfectants and changing tongs and not double feeding rats as much as they used to. So these are all very important things to talk about, man. And that's why I said I really like the medical stuff. And thankfully, Scott's given me the green flag to talk about things that we've learned through him. And man, even like the egg-bound female, our vets got that egg out correctly, because he's 6 hours behind us. And I text him on the weekends and stuff. He's incredible, but he obviously can't respond instantly always. So we got the surgery done prior to him finding out about it, and he was like, hey, congratulations, they did it great, but next time let's drain the egg, because the egg that you save is going to be bad always. It's a retained egg. It was never laid correctly, and you risk doing tissue damage to the it's not the GI tract, it's the tract of her laying eggs, as opposed to what would have happened if you just drained the egg, because it's close enough to the cloaca, you can drain the egg and then the snake will pass it on their own. It's incredible to have, man, and we need to talk about it. All of our friends that we're breeding with, whenever people have medical problems, they're coming to us, and we're passing it on to Scott. And obviously he's not, not everything he says is going to be the word of snake god, but it's going to be a good starting point, and then you can work with your vets here. And he wrote the text. He's an editor of the textbook called Mater's Amphibian and Reptile Medicine and Surgery, Volume 3, I think. And a lot of universities use their textbook for exotic animal medicine. They use that textbook. Our vets in Prague know him and use his textbook. So we show up sometimes and we say, hey, Scott wants us to do this. And they say, no problem. And they do it. And because of that, now we have antibiotics on hand. I have metronidazole on hand. We've got almost everything we need for a basic problem, so that we don't have to run to the vet, because we live 2 hours away from the vet now.
Okay. Yeah. So you've got, amoxicillin or whatever it is, or
I think we have what is it called? Sorry,
like amikacin or something like that. Or
no, isn't it here in the fridge? 1 second, let me grab it. Where is it? Ah, here it is. It is Quiflox.
I just remembered. Yeah,
Marboflaxin.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
That's what we start with, without needing a culture. But yeah, so we have it just in case something needs something right away, because just having to drive 2 hours away just to get an injection when we can do it ourselves is pointless.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they're
especially for the animal, man, the animal doesn't need to go spend 6 hours in the car when it's sick.
No. No, not at all.
Thankfully, the only time we've ever had to use antibiotics is we've had 2 snakes with infected mouths from a rat bite or something. One of them was solved very easily, and another one we're still battling. He just had his 3rd surgery 2 days ago, and hopefully we get it this time. So he has a cyst in his lip, so it's not in his mouth, but it's in the jaw, and it creates a swelling. And we removed it the first time, and it came back in a different spot, even after 2 months of antibiotics and cultures and everything. And Scott was saying that it's really tough because the rat will bite the gum, bacteria will get inside the wound, and then the wound seals. So now the wound is sealed with the bacteria in the lip, and it roots itself in the tissues. So when they do the surgery, if you don't remove every piece of tissue that has even the littlest bit of that bacteria, it has a chance of coming back. So now we have the snake that has he has an open wound, and we're flushing it daily with F10. So these are the problems that we've dealt with from having 500 snakes for 3 years. And then we have our famous ultra milk clown story where the girl didn't poop that Scott cured.
Elaborate. Tell us more.
Okay, so we had an ultra milk clown that we bought that almost froze to death on the way to us. I bought her from a breeder. We have animal courier licenses, and some people don't let us use them. They're like, if you want to buy our animal, you have to use my courier, whatever. So use the courier that had to get shipped to one of my friends in Germany because they don't ship outside of Germany. So I had to go pick it up from my friend's house. And of course, the guy wanted to send it in February, and he was like, oh, tomorrow's the right time. And my friend wasn't a snake guy, and he called me and he said, your animal showed up dead. And I said, okay, but I was an hour away, so I was going to still show up and get the animal. So within that hour of it showing up, it sat in his living room, and it slowly came back to life from the heat. So I brought the animal back, and it took me quite a while to get the animal to eat. I remember the girl had a wobble when I got her home because she was frozen, and it slowly got better.
Stuff.
And it took me a month to get her to eat. And this was before we took any records or had any labeling on the tub. So she started eating. Great. 3-4 months later, I opened her tub, and she was as big as a balloon, man. It wasn't the same as that, it wasn't the same bloated like the Cine Ultra Clown. She was just stuffed up. So I asked my friends, and they're like, oh, maybe she has a stuck urate. So she didn't have a stuck urate, but she just wouldn't poop, man. And it was pretty easy to push out. I'm not going to get too graphic, but it was like a 400-gram snake, and I probably pushed 100 grams of poop out of the snake, man.
Jeez.
Like 25% of her weight. And this was before we had Scott, okay? So I asked all my breeder friends, all guys that I like and have respect, and everybody has a different answer. One person thinks this, one person thinks that, blah, blah, blah. So one of my friends just says, man, just keep helping her. Maybe she's not strong enough from when she was younger and she needs like more muscle, whatever. So this went on for like 8 months, man. Long time of me pushing this poop out of her like once a month. She ate like crazy. Sometimes I would skip meals to try to get her to eat. And she would pee and pass urates, but she wouldn't poop. And I didn't know this at the time, but Scott has told me now that the urate is produced in a different part of the body than where they would poop. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything that they can pass urates, but they can't poop. So finally, I remember someone had scared me, like, don't take her to the vet. Antibiotics make a female, or x-rays make the female infertile, blah, blah, blah. But finally, I'm like, okay, dude, it's not about the snake breeding. It's about the snake living. So we brought her to the vet. They gave her a contrasting solution. First, they x-rayed her, and they could see that she was filled with gas. Everything was gas mostly. So she was filled. There was some stuck poop, but everything that was inside of it was like, rotting gas inside of her. So they gave her a contrasting solution, which was in order for them to be able to see the intestines, correct? And they told us to come back it was like on a Thursday, and we needed to come back on like Monday. And she also had some antibiotics during then. So she started on the marboflaxin on like Thursday, so she got 2 doses. And by the time we came back on Monday, the x-rays were way better. So like, okay, the antibiotics are working. Let's finish the antibiotics. So we finished the course of the antibiotics over the 21 days or whatever it was. And she looked way better, dude. She had no more gas inside of her, but now she was having stuck urates. We run a pretty humid facility downstairs. It's a jungle down there, so we don't have dry tubs. We don't have dehydration problems, so this was really strange. So I started pushing out hard urates, and she still wouldn't poop. Fast forward a few months, and now we have Scott in the picture, and this was one of the first problems that we dealt with Scott. So Scott said, okay, so when she froze to death, her gut flora was probably affected and went backwards, and she didn't have the right bacteria in her system to digest food.
Yeah.
So we know that it's bacterial because the antibiotics helped, but the antibiotics don't only just kill bad bacteria, they kill the good bacteria too. So we now need to introduce the good bacteria back into her gut flora. So we need to take poop from a healthy snake and feed it into the stomach of this snake. It's a similar treatment they do for people with Crohn's disease.
Okay.
So we went and found poop. I think I found poop from like an animal from like the same breeder or something, or same project. Actually, no, I lied. I took an animal it was a poop from Justin's animal because I didn't have anyone else. Might as well take his. And we fed it to her, and it took probably like 2 months after that, but maybe like a week after that, she had diarrhea, which was a kind of an improvement, right? Because she wasn't passing anything before. At least she passed something, and then 2 months later, she started pooping again normally, and like, man, I've sold that animal to my friend now, and there's just it's unbelievable that nobody could figure that out prior to Scott, and it was just such an easy thing. And now, like, man, that white lace clown that I showed you from Justin, she has digestion issues too. She was one of the animals that threw up that rat from that from that same batch that that killed the snake. So guess what, dude? I smeared some poop on a rat last week. She also got some metronidazole, and she's not perfect yet, but she's passing on her own after 5 months of me not seeing her pass and having to help and having her whatever. And that's invaluable, and like, it's not Justin's fault. What am I going to do? And I message him 5 months later, hey man, I fed your snake a bad rat and now it doesn't poop. So it's invaluable to have great medical help, and it's really hard to find good vets. Not everybody has access to it because Scott's not cheap.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy, because I would have never in a million years thought that the solution for that was to smear poop on a rat.
It makes sense though, right? Because it has, that poop is filled with good bacteria from a snake that can pass their meals, right? So it just helped restore the gut bacteria of that snake. So, and man, she's still in my friend's collection. I think she's 2,000 grams, about to be sitting on eggs. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, which also shows you that the X-ray and the antibiotics don't make the snake infertile or whatever it is.
No, not at all.
It's just hearsay, man.
Yeah, I think it's like old wives' tales and things. And
yeah, I think a lot of that still exists in the ball pythons, but hopefully,
100%.
Hopefully that us and others and the education will help slowly change that over time.
So moving forward, 3 genes you want to add to your collection?
Paint. What else do we not have? I'm a bit on the fence about zebra, but I guess I'm going to add it.
Okay.
It is a nice recessive. I don't know what to do with it, though. I see that Mike from Rattle Snacks, Mike Lewis, has some.
Yeah.
He offered me some a bit ago. I haven't taken him up on it yet, but yeah, Renee really likes the zebra stuff. He was like, man, if I was buying something, I'd buy zebra tomorrow. So let's say paint I really like, but again, I want to go paint clown, of course, and paint hypo clown.
Yeah.
What is the last thing that I really saw? Man, I don't think I have 3 genes to add. I think I have 2. Is there any new codom or anything? No.
You're working with quite a wide selection of genes.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't want to add too much more, because if anything, we're kind of going the opposite direction. Like, we're gonna get rid of Candy. We're gonna get rid of Lav Albino. I'm probably gonna slowly, assuming it's possible, phase out most of the blue-eyed leucistic genes from our projects. I like Mojave in some things, but from a high-end perspective of the directions that I want to go, I want to have the least amount of risk of possibility creating bells or having lesser show up in a combo. I don't want to make a combo that I really need and then have to fight with lesser or something if I don't have to. So I'm really focusing on kind of going backwards. I'm really thinking, man, there has to be something out there. What have I seen? Excalibur from
exclusive.
Marcello, yeah, could
Yeah.
be cool. Ralph from Mr. Cosmos has some other cool stuff that he's brewing as well. White Fire. White Flame. Sorry, White Flame. Watch out, everybody. Mr. Dinker's coming for you guys. Of course, Cosmos too, man. Awesome gene.
Yeah, there's some crazy stuff at the moment.
Yeah. But other than that, man, recessive. Tornado's a cool one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind having some of that. I haven't seen so much of it. I was kind of trolling you about how all of it's het pied and het black exanthic. So get me one without those and maybe we'll talk. But we just bought some stuff from Miguel, but it wasn't necessarily, and Justin as well. We bought a confusion puzzle from Justin.
Okay.
So like I'm having to add genes that we have in other projects, you know, like we have a bunch of confusion, but I don't have it in puzzle yet. And I don't want to buy, like, if someone was to offer me tomorrow a confusion hypo puzzle or a confusion puzzle, I would buy just the confusion puzzle because I want to continue working with the hypo that we have from Renee's animals.
Yeah.
And I've already kind of learned the hard way that, like, our hypo DG Het Clown is not the same hypo stuff that Renee's is, you know, or maybe it is. Maybe it's the same line, but it's a different quality. And it doesn't put out the same quality animals as anything that we have from Renee's. Sure. So I want to continue to be selective with these things and keep our quality as high as possible.
That makes perfect sense because, you know, like we said earlier, Renee's hypo is like second to none, absolutely second to none. Would you go back and put the Renee's hypo in your DG Clown stuff and start?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's. I mean, so we have a special hypo clown that doesn't come from Renee, but comes from Germany as well. And it's also, we have two of them actually, and they're phenomenal as well. So I don't want to say that they're from the same, but it's that same quality. And we have it to the hypo DG Het Clown, which is not the world's nicest hypo, but we only made one hypo combo last year and I missed everything. So maybe, you know, the female's hypo is a bit more dominant this season and we can get something nicer. Oh, sorry, we made two hypo combos from it. So I'm probably going to have to go backwards with one of Renee's hypo clowns to go forwards, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, completely.
I'm going to keep them separate and see if it makes a difference. My guess is that it will, but, you know, if this special hypo clown is as nice as I say it is, I would think that even from an average male, that there will be some better examples than others. Because even from, we repeated this pairing this year from Renee's animals that were puzzle hypo to red stripe Enchi firehead hypo. And like I was showing you, man, that 3 gene hypo is totally different this year than it is from last year, and they're the exact same animals.
Yeah, I mean, that quality is always going to show through, especially if, you know, Renee stuff is so good, and with the market sort of coming down a little bit, you want to produce the best quality stuff that you can for people's money, right?
Yeah. You know, the 5-digit animal in the next 5 years is going to be significantly stronger than it's ever been, right? Like, in order for you to continue to produce animals that hold these value, they're going to have to really carry power, because like when we started, and stranger clowns and blackhead clowns and stuff were super expensive. I mean, are they worth the money? Sure. Are they worth it? No, right? Like that animal shouldn't be that price based on how easy it is to make. If you bring a dinker African male in, you can have that clown in 2 seasons, right? So I think that when you're going to be spending these big bucks in the next few years, you're going to be seeing some crazy stuff, like 3 codom gene double visual het stuff, and everything is just going to continue to go down that path of power, especially if you're going to want to spend good money. So I think it's a good thing, because to spend 3,000 euros for a clown head DG like I did when we started, it's not worth it, especially when someone can just go buy a DG clown and close their eyes and put on their clowns and make these hets, right?
Yeah. Do you think there's a point where the amount of genes in an animal is going to get too much?
It is, yeah. But it seems that Justin kind of proves us wrong sometimes, because he's like, here's another 5 gene clown that looks awesome. But of course he has a direction that he's going and he understands what he's trying to do. Where sometimes you see people putting 4 genes on A and another 4 genes on B and just being like, well, let's see what happens, boys. And there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, you know, not every gene works together correctly. Like, look at Moraine Monsoon. That's a less is more thing, right? The
Yeah.
more you put into this snake, if it's not just like, ultramel hypo monsoon or something that's going to change the color, you're at a very high chance of wiping your entire snake's pattern out. So yeah, it is, but then there's also genes, like it seems like clown has a lot of tolerance. You can throw as much as you want in it and it still seems to produce decent animals. Not always, but more so than, I don't know, it's how often do you see 5-gene pied animals? I'm a hater, so.
They all look very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's only so many genes you can put into pied. None of the Bell complex really works. Maybe Mojave at best. But with pied, some of the lesser genes that people overlook, like pinstripe, work really well.
Yeah, because
And
it pulls all the pattern into it.
Yeah, and Enchi, people are still trying to reduce Enchi and clown and things, but Enchi and pied, fantastic. But
yeah,
you always have like a staple of genes like Orange Dream, Yellow Belly, Enchi, and probably a few others that work fantastic.
These are going to kind of be like, they're kind of going to be like the base of our palettes,
Well, almost like clown is now Yellow Belly, Red Stripe, Spot Nose, and then whatever you're building on top of that, because it gives you that crazy color and then that flaming down the side.
But people still seem to discover types of combos. I mean, I think that puzzle is going to be a very reactive one to lots of genes as well too. I think that a lot of the times it's going to
be crazy.
I think a lot of the times you see these 4 and 5 gene puzzles will be pretty reduced in terms of like, really high white sides and things. Yeah, sorry. I don't know if you can hear it, but the dog's really going hard on this water bowl. You done, buddy? All right, we're good.
It was really loud.
Yeah, it was really loud. I'm not sure how much it picked up on that. But yeah, dude,
it was fine. Don't worry.
I think that one of the things that's really underutilized is there's not a lot of people chasing super projects out there. I mean, everybody makes super pastels now, and we don't want to make super pastels. But when you have a gene like, chocolate and Orange Dream, obviously Ozzy plays the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Sorry, what are you doing? But I think that a lot of people are not utilizing supers as much, even though the super chocolate type of clown is super reduced. My head wants to put Orange Dream in it and see what the opposite does. Is it going to make this weird purpley contrast color in it?
Yeah.
So another thing too is like, if you have a chocolate hypoclown or a super chocolate hypoclown, even though that super chocolate is on paper double as good, it's way better than double as good. You have less confusion. You know what your animals are coming out of. You reduce the if you a 4-gene combo instead of being 1 in 16 is now 1 in 8 to make. So it's a huge difference for these things, and I think that a lot of people don't utilize supers as much. What's up, buddy? You're trying to be on the Prague Morphs. This is the Prague Morphs.
Viewers going to be watching this.
He's just upset he hasn't got any attention in the last hour and 27 minutes. So.
Well, I'm very conscious of the time because obviously you are an hour ahead, so it is approaching midnight. So I'm going to start wrapping it up.
Yeah, man. Dude, this has been a lot of fun.
The question that I ask pretty much on every podcast finisher is, you're having dinner, 4 people. You can invite 4 people, dead or alive. Who are you inviting and why?
That's a really tough one for me. I don't know if I can answer this right away. Let me think. 4 people, dead or alive. No, you don't. I'm sorry, my wife is not in that one. You will think you're in that one, but you're not.
You're a braver man than I am, saying that sitting next to her.
So these are going to be really strange answers. The first person is a professional poker player called Ben CB. I forget his full screen name. I've watched a lot of podcasts with him on the Joe Ingram show. If you're a poker guy, one of the best online crushers of all time. I love to pick these guys' brains, not just from a poker perspective, but from someone who has really figured out they're so good at risk analysis, man. It's crazy. So that's one person that I'd like to say. I really like this Sod Guru guy. He's like this mystical Wook guy, this like Indian guy. That would be cool. I guess I'll add Justin to that table. I haven't had a great chance. I've had a small conversation with him, and I'm sure it's coming in the future. But it's nice to talk to someone who's got things figured out and has been doing it for a long time, especially with what we're trying to do. And the last person that I would say, I'd probably say my grandma, man. I'd probably say my grandma is not here anymore. She never got to see any of the stuff that we built with Prague Morphs. And I think that she would be shocked that I'm involved in snakes and spiders and all these things, which we didn't talk about on this. But I think that that would be crazy. So, yeah, those are the 4 people I'd like to say. And, yeah, I guess. Kind of strange one for me.
What are you going to have for starters, mains, and desserts?
Oh, man. Starters, mains, and desserts. Help me out here. Dude, I don't know, man. I can't answer that one. We'll have tartarak, which is raw beef Czech starter that you put on bread, deep fried bread, and you take a piece of garlic, and you rub it on it, and that's with raw beef. We'll have that as a starter, and for the main course, we'll have svíčková, which is a Czech traditional beef dish with dumplings and a vegetable gravy with whipped cream and cranberries, which you will try when you come visit us, Tom.
Whipped cream on gravy.
I'm telling you, dude, and cranberries.
Okay.
Okay, and you even get a slice of lemon. You can. I like how we got this guy in the background. And for dessert, we're gonna have chocolate fondant, man, with ice cream. Because anytime I'm at a restaurant and they have it, I just can't say no.
There we go. Sorted. So, closing tradition on this podcast is the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who it's going to be.
Okay.
So, the question that you have been left is, what do you wish you know, or what do you know now that you wish you knew in the past?
Also a tough one, because I don't know if I'd say I wish I knew it, because it's that process of learning that gets you to there, right? I wish I knew that a lot of the virus scare that you hear is true, but it is not as scary as you would think it is. And I don't say that from personal experience. I say that from working with a vet who has dealt with 25 years of large collection management, and that has made me sleep a lot better. That being said, still be careful, still practice quarantine, but the days of entire collections going under is still possible, but with the right biosecurity, anything is manageable, guys. Otherwise, none of us would be here in this hobby, and shows wouldn't be able to be possible, etc. So that's a big one for me. And I lost a lot of sleep over the virus scare in the beginning, especially when a year into it, I realized I've bought 130 animals from 15 different breeders. Maybe that wasn't the best way to go about things. So, yeah, that's what I will say. And I guess that my job is to find the question for the next person, correct?
Yes, but I will get that off air so that no one knows what it is. So you've got a little bit of time to think of it.
Cool.
You don't have to give it to me tonight. That's fine.
Nice. I don't have to say it here, so I can just text it to you. Cool.
Yeah, you can text it to me. That's fine. That's no problem at all. But pretty much that is it from me. We've been going on for an hour and 33 minutes. It is nearly midnight in your neck of the woods.
Thanks for having me.
Matt, it's been a pleasure. Absolutely fantastic listening to your chat and catching up with you over the last couple of weeks and months, etc. So yeah, I'm going to put you in the waiting room. Just hang about for me. I'm going to close this up, and then we'll catch up after.
All right, cool. I'll see you in a bit.
Cool. No worries.
Thanks, everybody. I hope everybody liked all the stuff I rambled on about.
So. Mate, it was fantastic. No problem at all.
All right. Well, I will rush off, and I'll see you after, okay?
Yeah, no worries.
All right.
Cheers. Thanks, man. There we go, guys. That was, for me, that was a really enjoyable episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Some really good conversation, some really interesting points, and kind of good to see it from a new guy's perspective that's coming in and putting in a huge amount of money. Like you said, unfathomable amounts of money for most people, and trying to build an empire from scratch with it, basically. And I think it's kind of refreshing to see that sort of money is still getting put around in the hobby, and that people are still seeing this as a financially viable career path or industry or business, whatever. So I think that's pretty refreshing, pretty cool to see. But yeah, not like I said, not really much to say. Go and check out all the sponsors. You'll see them at the start of the video again as well, obviously. Pretty much it from me. thanks very much for listening, guys, and a big thanks to Devon from Prague Morphs for coming on. Yeah, catch you soon. See you next time. Peace.